Good day, everyone. Today's puzzle is I would say, very difficult to see, very difficult to solve, because the solution of this puzzle will leave you speechless. So, you're playing with white, you have bishop, you have rook, and you have the king, against two pawns, and these two pawns are really strong, like they can push, and it's going to be very difficult to try to stop them, because the rook is supporting the pawns. So, what would you play here with white? Would you play a check with the bishop? Would you play a check with the rook? Would you, you move your king? How would you react to this position? Because bear in mind that you have to win this because you're now up a pawn, but you're facing really annoying two pawns that, might push and lead to a draw, or maybe a queen for your opponent. So pause the video to try to find the right move, the right starting move for white. Okay, hopefully you paused the video for a while to try to see the solution. So if you thought about, for example, bishop to b5 check, yes, the king cannot go here because of the rook, so he just moves king d8, but even if you played rook a8 check, the king obviously will not go here and give you the rook, he will go here to protect his rook, and you cannot do anything here. If you play another check, the king can just move, and the pawns will keep on pushing, and most likely will end up in a draw or a win for black if he managed to push the pawns. So here you might say, well, I want to play rook d7 check. Well, also it doesn't help much. The king can move and there are no kind of discoveries. Even if nothing can happen here for white. There's no way to win this. So, and this is very slow because the pawns can be pushed, especially f5. So whenever you try to get the king closer, there's f5. You try to get the king closer, there's this check, and you have to go back, and the pawns will keep on pushing. So it is not bishop to b5 check, and it is not rook to a8 check, because after this check, simply he was going to go here, and definitely you don't want to take because the bishop will have to sacrifice itself for one of the pawns, and this is if you manage to get the king closer to there to get some kind of a draw. So this check will not help. Rook a8. Now you might see, oh, I just have king c5. King c5, and then I play king d6. Whenever the king moves, we play checkmate with rook a8. And for example, if he moved the rook to g8 or h8, he's going to lose the game because of check. The king has to move up and he will lose his rook. Yes, you are right. He will not move his rook. Obviously, he will not move his king because after king d6, this is a checkmate in one. The only way to get out of it is to play king c8. And then you play a check, the king moves, and then you win the rook, you win the pawns, and this is obviously winning for white. So after the move king c5, you're trying to go king d6 to checkmate your opponent. He cannot move the king, he cannot move the rook. It looks like white is winning and you manage to finally find the solution for one of these puzzles. Well, king c5 is the wrong move. You know why? Because he doesn't have to move the rook or the king. He can play f5. See, the move f5 is insane. The reason it's insane because whenever you play king d6, you're preparing this checkmate. He doesn't have to move the king. He doesn't have to do anything. He just played check. That's why he played the move f5. So that he can play this check, he can kick the king backward, and then the rook will move to b6, stopping this check here. Yes, we can play some checks, but the king will just run. And if you want to go for some kind of perpetual, it is just some kind of a draw. Even if there's rook g7, an attack on the rook, this is defended, so we cannot do much. So it seems like the only thing that's standing in our way with the move king c5 is that he has the move f5, so that whenever we get closer and we're trying to checkmate him, because the king cannot move upward, so whenever we put the king here or here, this will be checkmate. So the problem is this move f5 that allows the rook to go to f6. So we go back all the way from the start. We know that after king c5, he will have this f5 move, and whenever we get closer, he can use his rook to give us some checks. So how would we stop the pawn from going to f5? You guessed it. We play bishop f5 ourselves. This is insane. We sacrifice the bishop on f5 so that he will never have the opportunity to play f5 to get his rook active. And bear in mind, he cannot move the rook to g8 or h8 because of a check, and he will lose the rook. That's pretty obvious. So you might say, well, he can just take the bishop. Well, now it's going to be very messed up, because now we can play king c5. He cannot move the rook. If he moves the king, we have king d6. After king d6, this is checkmate in one, so he cannot push the pawn. This is checkmate. The only way to get out of it, he cannot even move the rook. This is checkmate in one because of the king is controlling these squares. So he has to play king c8. We play a check. The king moves up. We take the rook, and these pawns cannot push because obviously we're gonna win the pawns, and it's going to be winning for us. So the right idea was king c5, but because of the move f5, it is not possible. So that's why before king c5, we have to play bishop to f5 to stop him from playing the move f5. Now you might say, okay, what if he didn't take the bishop? Okay, what if he just played f6? Well, you can take the pawn with a check. Of course, he will not go here. He's just going to go, for example, king d8. And then you can play king c5. Remember, he doesn't have this check. And it's not going to be good for him because he just lost his pawn. Or he can play something better than king c5 here. Actually, after this move king d8, you can play, because whenever you play king c5, he has this push. Whenever you get closer, you lose the bishop. So a better move before king c5 is to play bishop f7. See, he cannot attack the bishop. He can never take it. Whenever he moves here, that's a check. And yes, he can win our bishop, but the king can stay there, stopping the pawn, and then we can win the pawn with the rook and with the king. So he cannot move the rook. He moves the pawn. We don't really care because we want to play king c5. He goes here, we go there, and this will lead to a checkmate. He has to go here. That's a check. He moves up to b7. We take this. He pushed, trying to do something, but there's some checks, and this will be completely losing. So the solution for this puzzle is yes, trying to get the c5 to d6 to try to checkmate the black king, or to win the rook if he ever moved it. But in order for that to happen, we have to stop f5, which allows the rook to go for a check to stop the king from restricting the enemy king from moving. That's why this solution is very creative. We have to sacrifice a piece to take the square that our opponent needs in order to get away from this checkmating pattern. This is insane. Tell me in the comments if you managed to find the solution for this puzzle, or if you saw king c5, king d6, but you did not know what to do after the move f5. And that's pretty much it. I see you in another video tomorrow.